Okay, so a lot has happened during God. The last, was it 2 months that I've been live? And I've heard Dan Schneider sued Quiet on Set for defamation, which, Dan, that's really funny. I was shocked a little bit, honestly, to see that. But it makes sense. Like, we've spoken about this a lot. And I'm not saying this is Dan, but I'm saying within the entertainment industry, and actually what I was talking about earlier, is when someone feels that they are losing power, they have to regain that power. And that is the unhealthy cycle and, yeah, I mean, honestly, cycle dimension of power, is that power can get addictive, and it becomes a sense of self, so that when anything takes even a little bit of power away from a person with power, they feel like they need to regain that power.
You
And
about to lose your job. You about to lose your job. Get this dance. You about to lose your job because you are detaining me for nothing.
he didn't, Dan, though, he lost his job, right? I feel like Dan, like, does he have a job right now? I'm not sure. Maybe he's gonna work for Boogie. What's his name? Maybe Boogie has a job for T. Maybe he has a job for Dan. But I feel like, Dan, that probably was a lot. And that could make somebody feel like, and this is just my opinion, wanting to regain power, which means, sadly, in the patriarchal world, litigation. And it's not even just about the litigation, it's just about the news cycle that helps gain new type of traction and even out the playing fields. But the thing that I had the problem with the most when it came to Dan's lawsuit was they were showing your own footage. I never heard once anyone in that documentary, say Dan Schneider is a predator. It was more about the predatory behavior that was sadly so easily happening under the guise of Nickelodeon. And then they would just show Dan Schneider's own footage, and that was kind of it. And then how people related to him or their experience with him, which, I mean, I don't see Dan suing people individually. It seems like he wanted to sue the documentary for what he believes insinuated that he was a predator. But listen, you're not going to be insinuated as a predator if you... What's a nice way of doing this? And fair. If your footage was just the theme song of Zoe 101 credit score, I don't think there's any type of insinuation that people could make about you. I believe the power of the image and the power of creation and what it can insinuate. And that's why there's a lot of responsibility, I believe, onto creators. You have to know your responsibility. You have to know how something's going to be viewed as to the world. And what are you trying to get people to insinuate or to believe or to engage with? What is it? And now I could literally show Dan Schneider's footage from the slap without that documentary, which, by the way, that material existed long before the documentary, and people were saying a very similar thing, which was, that's not okay. That's not okay. And instead of Dan going, I mean, he ended up saying, let's cut it. Let's just take it out of the thing. Well, that's not going to happen, Dan, because it's already out there. But what you could say is, I know that's wrong. I know how that looks. But instead, what kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, you're choosing to fight instead of fight for what's right. And that's going to create this never-ending bullshit that all of us humans are in. You're choosing to fight instead of just going, okay, I see what that looks like. Even if you're not emotionally ready to get to the point of you were aware of how that would look, I think it'd be important, though, for you to say, I know what that looks like. And I know that that put my employees into a position that made them vulnerable, insinuated something that is not all right, especially when they're children. I think that would be a really important step into your boogie episode. Maybe you can do boogie part 2 and take my advice and say that. I think the lawsuit feels still like you're hiding because you've had an interview with somebody who was already your employee at one time, and then you sue for this, what it insinuated, which also I don't like that you're feeling like the public doesn't have a right moral compass, so to speak, and that they can't gauge what is morally okay and what is morally not okay. I do think that the public does have that compass. Maybe when you were working at Nickelodeon, that compass was a little more skewed. But I think now, with time and education, people understand when something's just not okay. And I don't believe, in my opinion, that the footage that you were personally creating and standing by when it came to children was morally sound, morally okay. And I don't think you should be worried about how the documentary, what it insinuated. I think you should be more okay about what you did, what you created, what you allowed to be filmed. And then maybe you can say, I would rather you be not okay with how that could be insinuated versus how it was insinuated. You know what I mean? But I think that's the truth. I think it's also better than all of this, and probably less expensive. Because, I don't know, it's possible that you're going to pay attorney fees. And there's like anti-SLAPP in California and all these different moving pieces when it comes to litigation. And I think it's less of a trouble to just understand that what you did, in my opinion, and I'm sure for a lot of different people out there, was wrong. And you now trying to say people feel like you are a predator because you're in a documentary with predators. Again, like, I just don't think your co-workers, for example, with their creations, if it was part of that documentary, would be they wouldn't be insinuated in that type of way, in the same way that you are, because of your actual footage that you created. Like, why write lines where I'm having to say how a shirt makes me look chesty? An old guy writing that? Now imagine, Dan. Here, let's get a more real. Now imagine if you had a kid, which you don't. Imagine you had a kid and you got onto your kid's laptop and some dude was talking about the fact that, you know, does that shirt make you look chesty? And she's like 12. What does that feel like? What does that insinuate? I think it's actually more dangerous, in my opinion, to have that type of behavior broadcasted on a children's network. Well, no, it's dangerous for the kid as well. You get my point. As dangerous, more responsibility that you are having people's brains think about a 12-year-old in a shirt that made her look chesty. That's weird. What are you defending exactly? Where is the room, honestly? Where is the space to be able to navigate that is not unacceptable behavior? So I was kind of upset, to be honest, when I saw that he was suing Quiet on Set, even though I have my own opinions about Quiet on Set. Both can be true. Quiet on Set had its own issues. Dan suing Quiet on Set, that's his own beef, I guess, with Quiet on Set. And though at the same time, it's again, you're just like not taking accountability for what I believe, or I believed personally, was to be exploited by you as a child and to be treated poorly by you. And the fact that you held a certain amount of power, I saw how you held it. You held it poorly, and you still do. You didn't hold power well. You don't know what power is, honestly. It should be used in the right way, where it actually makes change. You are a hoarder of power, in my opinion, and you used it to inflict your power onto other people. And that's how I felt on set with you. Like, you just held this power, and then we all had to, like, bow to Dan Schneider. And then now you're kind of with the Boogie situation, there's the power dynamic again. And then you suing Quiet on Set, there's the power dynamic again. And you're not learning what the main issue is that I believe, if I was having a heart-to-heart with you, Dan, is that you don't know how to handle power. And you need a healthier relationship with it. And you need to admit that you did what you did that wasn't okay, in my opinion. And I really wish that for you, because then the rest of us can go and leave this behind in some type of way, including you. But suing Quiet on Set, you're just like, you didn't apologize to me. You didn't apologize still to really anyone. You said you were sorry in that video, but I didn't believe it. And I don't believe you are sorry. I believe you are using sorry as a way to look like a good guy. That's the worst kind of guy. You know? Don't use sorry as a way to manipulate other people. Sorry is powerful, and it should be used properly. The fact that Viacom and Nickelodeon, whatever, are saying that there was nothing found that was SA related when it came to Dan Schneider, I find this interesting because Jeanette McCurdy did say some detail about the creator and about him touching her knee and making her feel uncomfortable. So it kind of makes me think, did they interview Jeanette McCurdy? Did they really do their investigation properly? But also, what kind of upsets me is content being created that insinuates sex, that insinuates sexuality. I'm trying to like avoid how whatever on YouTube, but you get what I'm saying. Why wasn't that taken into, but I believe that the reason why that's not being faced head on is because a corporation like Nickelodeon, like Viacom, needs to protect their assets. And so therefore, they don't want to go there because that was content that was created by their own employees. Nickelodeon was a part of that horrific material. And so therefore they're making it just about like an SA scenario. But what about SH? What about like what I witnessed with my own eyes, which was Dan getting massaged by a wardrobe employee? And that Nickelodeon knew that he had a pattern of that type of behavior from the Amanda Show days, which was revealed in the Business Insider article, which was revealed in the documentary. So this was a pattern. This was a pattern of, allegedly, of Dan Schneider's. And so when they say, oh, we didn't find anything, you found something right away in the beginning with him, technically, because this was so many years ago and they had something to say. There were NDAs involved. You know what I mean? So it's very disappointing to see them shirk whatever when, you know, we know. So Dan, good luck. In the state of California, most likely this is going to be an anti-slap scenario. I couldn't see it being anything other. They only showed your own material and listened to the people that had something to say about you. And what they had to say about you wasn't that great.